Singapore Airlines has consistently been crowned as the world's best airline. Not only that, it also sits in one of the most prestigious international airports, Changi Airport. Coupled with that, Singapore Airlines has also emerged with a market valuation exceeding $13 billion and revenues of over $13.4 billion. One can simply imply that there is no better airline in the entire world than Singapore Airlines. Yet, what most people know about Singapore Airlines is about its success. People know just how big the company is today, yet forget about the long history it has. Singapore Airlines was born back in 1947 when the Malayan Airlines was launched. Initially, it was a joint venture between the governments of Malaysia and Singapore, serving merely regional routes with a small fleet. It was using Douglas DC-3 aircraft flying to Jakarta, Saigon, and Bangkok. In the 1960s, Malayan Airlines would be renamed 2 times, but eventually becoming known as the Malaysia-Singapore Airlines. In 1968, the company then celebrated its 100 million Singaporean dollars annual revenue. This also led to 3 new Boeing 707s to the fleet. In 1972, the biggest transformation would go underway. As Malaysia and Singapore split, the company became 2 entities, Malaysian Airline System and Singapore Airlines as we know it today. Singapore Airlines then absorbed more than $180 million in assets, including the Boeing fleet of 5 707s and 5 737-112s and 2 Fokker F-27 Friendships. Yet, as everyone knew about Singapore's earlier days, it wasn't bright. But Singapore Airlines, along with the entire Singapore economy, grew. In 1972, its fleet expanded to Boeing 747, Boeing 727, and DC-10. Its flight destination, which started as a regional carrier, to becoming an international airline. It was serving destinations to Tokyo, Los Angeles, London, and so on. By 1978, Singapore Airlines continued to grow and suddenly made bold moves. It signed a $2.1 billion agreement deal with Boeing, which was touted as one of the largest ever civilian aircraft deals at that time. The agreement was to purchase 10 Boeing 747s with an option to acquire 3 more and 4 727s with options to buy another 2. Fast forward to 1992, their continuous investments landed them another contract for 20 Airbus Industry A340-300 airplanes at a cost of $4.34 billion. By the end of the 20th century, Singapore Airlines had established itself as a premier carrier, known globally not just for its expansive network but also for its commitment to passenger comfort, service excellence, and innovation. Throughout the 21st century, we saw the huge growth of luxury services. It introduced new generation cabins, the world's widest first and business class seats, and even fully flatbeds. $50 million investment of cabin products in its A380. In just a few decades from its inception, Singapore Airlines transformed from a regional player into a global aviation powerhouse, recognized and respected worldwide. This was no accident, but the result of strategic decisions, a relentless pursuit of excellence, and a clear vision of what the airline wanted to represent on the world stage. And Singapore Airlines' growth wasn't even just solely on its own brand, Singapore Airlines. As most Singaporeans know, Singapore Airlines either owns or used to own other airline companies. For instance, currently Singapore Airlines subsidiaries consist of Scoot, its low-cost travel provider, SIA Engineering Company, its aircraft maintenance service company which services plans to more than 80 airlines around the world. Silk Air also used to be a subsidiary but eventually ceased operations and all its flights were transferred to the group. Tiger Air was also a player that eventually merged with Scoot. It even tried to acquire back in 1992 to own a stake in Qantas. And then between 1999 and 2000, it was able to make 2 major investments in Air New Zealand and Virgin Atlantic. Along with these investments and subsidiaries, it also strives in forming alliances. It's currently a member of Star Alliance, also recognized as the world's largest global airline alliance, which has members like All Nippon Airways, Lufthansa, Scandinavia Airlines, United Airlines, Swiss International Airlines, and so much more. But it would do us no good if we continue to talk about its rise. While Singapore Airlines had emerged as a huge player, it wasn't all that perfect. It had its challenges, which, as many saw, a big one during the COVID-19 pandemic. But it wasn't just this recent pandemic. There were so many challenges to Singapore Airlines. One of the earliest ones was in 1981. West Germany at that time campaigned against Singapore Airlines for selling discounted tickets. The airline's offices in Germany were reportedly visited by German tax officials on many occasions and experienced a number of increased checks on their flights, causing delays and embarrassment. In 1980 and 2003, Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew also had spats and problems with the company. Both occasions saw major wage disputes which led Lee Kuan Yew to intervene, and even some officials charged with illegal industrial action, and the Singapore Airlines Pilots Association was deregistered. Of course, following these issues, COVID-19 was still the largest problem. The worldwide lockdown has brought many airlines to a halt, some even driven to bankruptcy. Yet, clearly put, Singapore Airlines is still here. It had survived the world's largest health crisis. But how? Well, before we answer that, let us first see just how big of a financial impact Singapore Airlines had seen during this period. When COVID hit the world, Singapore Airlines' market valuation plummeted fast. In late 2019, the company was worth nearly $8 billion, yet by May 2020, it was worth $4.5 billion, nearly half of its valuation in just a few months. By the year 2019, the company had revenues of over $12 billion, but by the end of 2020, revenue fell to a shocking $4 billion. In the same year, Singapore Airlines also reported a net loss of over $3.2 billion, and if you think it immediately recovered, it didn't. 2021 was also a bad year for the company. So, okay, how did Singapore Airlines survive? Well, simple. We saw what Singapore has consistently done: a government interference. In March of 2020, Temasek Holdings, a state-owned fund, along with others, put up over 19 billion Singaporean dollars, or $13 billion for Singapore Airlines worth of funding package, which was the single biggest rescue for an airline slammed by the coronavirus pandemic at that time. As it flew past its past, Singapore Airlines is now on track to continue its strive as a world-class airline. It quickly recovered from COVID-19, its valuation, which dropped nearly half and rose to over $17 billion by mid-2023. Further, even during its COVID problems, the company did not stop its investments. In late 2021, Singapore Airlines even announced that it took delivery of 22 new aircrafts within the coming 20 weeks. The company would ramp up flights to key markets to meet unprecedented demand. This comes to show, as COVID-19 slowly disappears, everybody is now gearing back up to travel. In fact, the company also recorded an annual profit of $1.63 billion, reversing 3 straight years of losses. Singapore Airlines, along with its subsidiary Scoot, had carried over 26.5 million passengers, 6 times more than the year before. Its future is no doubt a bright one, due to the help of Temasek Holdings and others, and of course, one cannot disregard the management of the company, which did what it could. But we cannot forget that the management had to lay off jobs after jobs to reduce company costs. According to a report published in September 2020, over 2,400 jobs were cut from Singapore Airlines, and a total of 4,300 jobs, which includes Silk Air and Scoot. Further, it is also important to remember that this COVID-19 pandemic has led Singapore Airlines to raise money. The company's total liabilities, which is the amount the company owes, rose from 23.9 billion Singaporean dollars in 2019 to over $29.9 billion by 2022. This represents a continuous financial challenge. But in all honesty, if there will be big billion-dollar state funds like Temasek Holdings stepping into the company for help, then there really is no issue in Singapore Airlines' future. But anyway, do let us know what you think. Thanks for watching.